And we are live. Welcome to the Post Daily News Show for Wednesday, December the 15th. Winter is here. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I am doing well. You have a different location today. Where are you joining us from?
I am broadcasting from my bedroom
Oh,
because, of course, there's some construction going on in my usual location. So, had to take things out, and hopefully, it sounds a bit better today.
at what point do you go out there and pull the "Do you know who I am" card?
Probably, never.
Tomorrow. Well,
Yeah,
Wai,
we'll see.
on behalf of everybody, we appreciate you going to all of these lengths for us. We will take Wai in any form, fashion, or room that is available.
Yeah, we improve the graphics off the top, and then maybe diminish, take away from some of the background a little bit. But it's okay. We'll be back to
Ambience.
normal
This is
soon.
real life, folks. This is how this operation runs. Okay, there's always
There you
some
go.
construction or God knows what going on, but lots going on in the world of professional wrestling. We start off with the major news item today, broken by Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful.com, that Kevin Owens has re-signed with WWE, said to be a multi-year agreement. And Pat LaPrade of TVA Sports noted that he interviewed Kevin Owens this week, and that comments will be released on Thursday with an interview for TVA Sports next week, thus confirming that he has resigned. So we will hear comments from Kevin Owens on Thursday. Of course, Pat LaPrade doing a weekly podcast with a friend of the show as well, Kevin Raphael. So do check that out. But this is obviously, Wade, this was one of the significant names of this potential free agent frenzy for WWE. And we had been watching of Kevin Owens, who's been in a top position on Raw the last several months. I would say this is a strong coup for WWE, retaining a top talent in Kevin Owens, who is 37 years old as he signs this deal.
Yeah, on the list of free agents, I would say he was probably the highest profile one that was set to come up, and it's a move that I'm sure will disappoint a lot of people wanting to see Kevin Owens, be mixed in with the likes of his former friends in the Bucks and Adam Cole, and like potential dream matches that are at this point kind of out the window. But I think it's an understandable decision from Kevin Owens because he is not somebody who I don't think his future in the WWE is spelled out at all. He's somebody who they have chosen to be a former champion. They have put the belt on him. They see him at this level. They continue to, at least on this run, treat him well. Can't say so much, for the maybe the better part of the past year, but hopefully with a move like this, it tells us and it tells him that they are going to take him seriously, and hopefully that's reflected in the booking.
Yeah, and it's with Kevin Owens, like if you were to go through Owens, Gargano, and Kyle O'Reilly, those are three very different cases. For Kevin Owens, I can make a very compelling argument either way. If it was, if someone was on the fence, if Owens was on the fence, I think you could make a long list of reasons to stay. I think you could also make a really compelling argument of venturing elsewhere. I think he would have been very successful if he had chosen to leave. But in WWE, this is not a case like where I would look at a Kyle O'Reilly, for instance, where I would say it's definitely more of swimming upstream if you were to stay in that system. With Owens, like we have seen, he has been a very strong utility player for years. He has never been so far down that he is so divorced from the main event scene. He was always one or two programs away from being thrust right back there. And that's what we're seeing on Raw. He is a focal point on the show at the moment. It is probably a very healthy contract that he is resigning for. And on top of that, I don't think that these two get enough credit of the popularity that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn possess, especially in Quebec, but I would extend that to Canada. When you look at the WrestleTix numbers for that upcoming Toronto show, and they're also doing Laval that week. Not to say this is all on the shoulders of a Kevin Owens or a Sami Zayn, but nonetheless, and these are Raw shows. I believe both are Raw shows because Owens is on both of them. But they have always meant something in Quebec. Like they are seen as big stars, and that's also because pro wrestling is covered very seriously in Quebec. And it is like they are just the extension of a long lineage of Quebec based stars that are now with the biggest company in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully, that in turn means a healthy book for Kevin Owens. Certainly, he was in a great position of leverage. And, as far as like the AEW decision goes, AEW at this rate, I think will definitely still be there at the end of this contract, whenever it is. And we're talking about a very log jam period in the company's short history right now, where you have so many people coming in, so many free agents to choose from. Who's the guarantee that Kevin Owens would have enough TV time to, maximize his potential at this particular time versus 5 years from now or 3 years from now, or however long this contract is? He might even be able to go back in there at an even, command an even bigger rate. Whereas at this time, he seems to me like somebody who's very much, of the mind that he's always wanted to work for this company. He finds himself in a decent position and probably with a very attractive financial offer to stay here. I can understand why he would take it.
So anyway, we will probably follow up on this on Thursday when we actually hear public comments from Kevin Owens regarding the decision, because I find that really fascinating. Just of what was he weighing? Was it a big decision for him to make, or was it one that he went into with the understanding? It's very easy when you are happy in a situation, you don't typically want to mess that up. And if he was, fairly everyone's going to have gripes, I think, with their positioning, with their job. There's always going to be that, and Owens has been very transparent about that, even in WWE produced pieces of frustrations that he has had along the years. But if your overall comfort level is there, that weighs a huge factor. I don't think anyone necessarily covets change unless it is the absolute necessary option, and it obviously was not for Kevin Owens. New Japan had their big show today at Sumo Hall that featured the finals for both the Best of the Super Juniors and the World Tag League. We'll start off with the Super Juniors that came down to two-time winner Hiromu Takahashi winning his third tournament, defeating Yo in a matchway that clocked in at 38 and a half minutes.
Okay. All right. I mean, given that it's the final, I can understand why they would go that extra length, but it's sad to say, like it doesn't necessarily feel like it's a match I'm dying to see.
Yeah, it was. I've not seen the totality of the match, but I watched like the key parts of it. Kind of the major drama in the middle was Show getting involved and laying out both in the hopes that Red Shoes would throw the match out. We would have a no contest to end the show. Think of the heat way, but Red Shoes would not acquiesce, and he let the match continue. And Hiromu ended up winning with the Time Bomb 2, and thus winning his third Best of the Super Juniors, and sets up a championship match with El Desperado. If you remember, that was the final last year, which I thought was one of the best New Japan matches of 2020. So whether that happens on night 1 or night 2, I think that will be a hell of a match between those two at the Dome.
Yeah. I mean, I think Hiromu at the top is always to be expected at these Wrestle Kingdom shows, and it just seems like a bit of a transition back to the status quo. Again, from an outsider's point of view at this point, not necessarily something that is all that attractive on paper, but I'm sure it'll be a great match.
The World Tag League was won by Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi, defeating Evil and Yujiro. This match went about 20 minutes, and they introduced a new double team finish where it was Yujiro taking the pinfall, shockingly. This was kind of your House of Torture style match, which it's very aggravating at times. But when it does work is when you have, which I thought, I did watch most of this match. It was a very lively crowd. And when all of the villains' tactics get thwarted and the baby faces overcome it, that is when this can work best. And I thought this was like the best example of it. And it seemed like the audience really got into this. And Goto and Yoshihashi, again, I think I don't know if it's going to be the most marquee match with Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi, but I think stylistically, they're going to have a hell of a tag match at Wrestle Kingdom. But probably the biggest news coming out of the show was the publicized announcement by Katsuyori Shibata, where he came out into the ring. He was dressed up in a suit. He was near tears. He grabbed the microphone, and then Grayson Waller jumped. No. Katsuyori Shibata announced that on January 4th, I have a match. And that was it. We just know a date. We do not know an opponent, style of match. None of that was announced. But the way I took this way was that you should maybe have more expectations than just a grappling exhibition. The way this was worded as I have a match.
I don't see them making a big deal of teasing this announcement and then him coming out there simply to announce that he was going to have a grappling match. I think
Because if that was the case, I would have saved the Zach grappling match for Wrestle Kingdom.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we can expect this to be a professional wrestling match. Is this going to be a Katsuyori Shibata pro wrestling match, though, of the standard that I think we've come to expect of his style? I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think this seems to indicate some level of clearance from the doctors. To what extent would that clearance be? And somebody like him, once he gets up on that stage, how conservative is he going to be? I don't know. These are all big questions. And who the opponent is.
Yeah, I think the opponent will be interesting. Like, do you take another name? Do you put him in with like a student that has a backstory like that, where it's just, taking someone younger on the roster? I hope that there are measured expectations for this. I don't want to see listen, I want Shibata to do what Shibata is capable of in 2021, knowing that this is going to be a massive event, and I think he is going to want to push himself as far as possible, while we can also take solace in the fact that this man underwent brain surgery 5 years ago. It's I think all of that has to be taken into account here. But obviously, like New Japan was very conservative with Shibata. Like, there has to be a level of confidence in what they are clearing him to do. So I think you have to take all of that into account. But this will be one of the highlights of either three of the nights of Wrestle Kingdom.
At the moment, it is, to me, the most attractive thing about these shows is to see what level he's going to be competing at. From what we saw, I think he already looks tremendous. But what sort of style of match? It's going to be a big emotional moment. I mean, it was when he had that grappling match with Zach, but the moment he comes out and takes that first bump, we're going to be concerned, but I think we're also going to be very happy for him.
Now, KENTA issued a challenge on the show. He sent in a video message to Hiroshi Tanahashi that he will give him a rematch for the United States Championship, but it has to be a no DQ match with Tanahashi accepting. So we can expect that either January 4th or 5th. And yeah, those are the major announcements coming out of the show. So New Japan's year will wrap up next week with 4 straight nights at Korakuen Hall. And I would imagine, Wai, that we're going to get a press conference in the next day or two, probably laying out more of the complete cards for night 1 and 2 of Wrestle Kingdom. And also like the Noah card. Like, we still have that card to figure out for January 8th. So I would imagine there's going to be a pretty steady stream of announcements coming from New Japan.
Do you think we get no interaction on either of the Dome shows prior?
Yes, I would definitely shoot at least one angle on there for sure. I would want to drive people to that card on the 8th. I would say that's I would definitely have some no involvement on the shows.
Yeah, or at least, just to, obviously to generate buzz for that show itself, but also just as a bit of an extra surprise to see, a Keiji Muto or somebody pop up on one of these shows.
We move on over to NXT 2.0 on Tuesday night that featured the debut of Harland throwing poor Brian Kendrick down a flight of stairs, leading to a storyline cervical fracture. By the way, before we get into NXT 2.0 notes, we got a mention from our pal Scrump at PWTs, who wanted you specifically, Wai, to be aware of the fact that for the first time since August 20th, CM Punk is not the top seller at Pro Wrestling Tees. Do you want to guess who is?
It's got to be Hook.
It's Hook.
Wow, that is amazing. And
a money draw immediately.
The Hook shirt, honestly, is not that special. And maybe that's maybe it just kind of goes to show you, like, as long as you slap the name of a over person on the thing. I'm just going to pull it up right now for our video viewers. But
I've not seen the Hook.
What does that tell you? I'll show you right now. I mean, it's
I have seen this actually.
It is a white T-shirt with the word Hook on it. The Brian Danielson special, and this is now the most sold t-shirt at the store. That's crazy to me. But wow, it tells you the power of the
He is
meme.
currently the top seller. So I mean, he has connected with an audience. There's no doubt about that. So thank you to Scrump for passing that along to us. But you know, obviously Harlan's debut was one of the featured parts. It's also very clear that like they are going all the way with Grayson Waller. And I've got to say, I think this guy is stepping up into the role. I think he's always had a charisma about him in the few months that we have seen him, but it was very funny to hear. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he comes out for his promo. I don't think the name Johnny Gargano was ever uttered once. And it was the
No.
same with Von Wagner, who they made reference to Gargano. They made reference to Kyle O'Reilly, but I don't think either name was uttered on the broadcast. But I think Grayson Waller definitely benefited out of that last week, and he's established himself as like the lead heel on the show.
It's not unusual that, once somebody is out of their system, they don't mention them. We're talking about people that could be showing up in another rival promotion at any second. And not to say that's something to be concerned about. We all know who they're talking about, but it just kind of follows, the WWE mentality. So that didn't really surprise me. I think, like it was the right move to do to give the Johnny Gargano exit to somebody. You can definitely debate whether or not Grayson Waller should have been that person. But just kind of seeing who's on deck, like of the people that were in that War Games match, at least, I think he makes the most sense to provide something like that for. He's somebody who people seem to hate anyway, and to increase that by emphasizing it with the Gargano thing and then having everybody in the back dislike him too and ostracizing him. I thought he did fine. He came out and had to cut a big promo, seemed confident. Definitely, I think more of a wrestler or character in the mold of the Miz, and for a big first angle, I think he's doing decently fine, like, or at least to expectations. Harlan, what did you think of the debut match itself?
I can't say it like. I mean, it was 63 seconds with Guru Raj. I think it was more so the angle that they did afterwards that was the key part of the debut. I mean, he's got a great look to him. They kept this match very short, which for the Harlan character, it's probably best. Didn't jump out at the screen at me in any significant way, but he's obviously going to be one of the focused projects going into the new year.
I thought the physicality looked pretty good. Like his style of offense is very much just kind of, rough and monster like. And I love the fact that his first move was just basically like, collar and elbow tie up and then slamming the dude like just from that. I thought the debut was good. For a 60-second squash match. I thought I forget the jobber's name, I'm sorry, but like
Guru Raj.
Guru Raj did really well. Made Harlan look really good. I could have done without the angle. Like the idea of doing an angle and it's injuring a Brian Kendrick, I think is perfectly fine. The way they shot it looked campy as hell. Having like Kendrick go, oh, and then cut to a second shot and he's like lying face down, convulsing. That was a little too much and definitely kind of made the whole thing seem a lot more comical than I think it needed to be.
Braun Breaker really has just opened up the destination towards that cruiserweight title, pinning the champion clean. If he can make the weight, maybe. I guess you don't even have to make the weight now to challenge for the cruiserweight title.
Something tells me he's got his sights set on something bigger than that. It's too bad, like we saw the match on paper, Roderick Strong versus Braun Breaker, and I was definitely curious to see how they would get out of it because Strong hasn't really been losing since he's won the belts, and if you're a heavyweight champion contender, that seems to trump the cruiserweight championship, unfortunately. So it just kind of tells you what they think about it. And it's disappointing. This is main roster treatment we see all the time, and it's extended to NXT where this cruiserweight championship just continues to be more and more meaningless.
Yeah, it seemed that the dilemma was we want somebody of the caliber of Roderick Strong that can go out and have a 10-minute main event with Braun Breaker. At the same time, I mean, it just to me was such a categorization of where your cruiserweight title is that
if they were going to do this, I would have given it to Gacy.
Well, that's what I was arguing last week was the idea that, you're moving in this direction of Joe Gacy wanting to rename the show. I mean, if you're going to do that, go all the way, give him the title that gives him the power to do so. And then it eliminates just destroying your title here for a 1 week television main event. But I think
Yeah.
people already view the cruiserweight title at a certain level. So, yeah. And then ending the show with the angle with Tommaso Ciampa showing up. And next week, we get a street fight with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And it seems just the idea of building up a big kind of stipulation match each week. We had a no holds barred match this week. They're going to do the street fight this week rather than wait for the New Year's Evil special. And could you see this being kind of the wrap up of either character next week at the street fight? They're building this up as like, this is the finality.
I feel like we kind of say this anytime we see like, Raquel or in a big match, and it seems like of anybody she would feel like she would be going up. But I guess I also don't know if the main roster is at present introducing too many new stars from NXT. I feel like we just debuted Xia Li. We're still waiting on Veer Mahan. So something tells me that now might not be the time, and they simply want to, peak for a big TV match and maybe have a sort of like one final beat type of thing between these two before they move on to future opponents.
How did Duke Hudson look? Completely bald.
He looks better with hair, in my opinion. But I mean,
dude, he had a nice head of hair on him. Like, guy went along.
Nice
like,
hair.
It really seemed when they were doing the skits with Cameron Grimes and Grayson Waller way back about Cameron Grimes getting a makeover to appeal to the females, that this was all designed for Cameron Grimes to lose his hair. Dude, he has wiped the floor with this guy in card games, in the hair versus hair match, the no holds barred. Like, Duke Hudson just got beat like a drum throughout this thing.
He did, yeah. Yeah, I wonder if this is the end of the poker gimmick. I certainly hope so. Okay, you probably got the most out of this.
He's not the best poker player anymore. He kind of lost his gimmick.
Yeah, you got the most out of a poker playing professional wrestler as I think you could have in 2021. Please let this be a rebrand for the man.
And Boa Way.
Ooh, I think the look is cool. The face paint looks cool. It's an improvement over like what was a pretty plain generic wrestler in the past. But in ring, they still have a lot of convincing to do. And even the commentary, I don't sense is taking them all that seriously. You had Wade Barrett saying, "Oh, he's just getting used to his powers. Like he's not fully embraced.
You got to grow
powers
into them.
Yet.
You don't just snap your fingers and you've got mystical powers. You gotta wait a bit. And if you don't handle them properly, you end up having a sleep issue, like Karen Q.
That's correct. Yeah. I don't know what's up with that, but we'll see.
All right, Raw from Monday night. They did 1,574,000 viewers, down 2% from the week prior. They finished 6th for the night, and this was against a giant Monday Night Football game, the most watched Monday Night Football game, because it was on both ABC and ESPN. So a gigantic audience for that. The demo was up 8% from last week. The silver lining there is that being up 8% from the lowest of all time only led to this show being the second lowest 18-49 number on record for Raw. But the audience that did tune in, yes, it was on the lower end, but they largely stuck with the show. You did not see large tune-out factors. It did peak in the second hour, but that's the pattern we seem to be experiencing at the moment. The only 50 plus dropped 11% throughout the show, and that was the high end of tune out. But women were up this week, 18-49. Females 18-49 were up 21.5%. Women 18-34 and 35-49 also increasing. So it seemed to be that Bobby Lashley wrestling multiple times spiked their female viewership, because there was nothing else going into the show unless you had disappointed people that wanted to see the Mysterios and the Street Profits.
Yeah, so maybe more, 3 match per night appearances for their top stars to come, perhaps.
That's right.
I don't know.
That's right. How many more with this 4-way? I mean, we still have the contract signing, which maybe we could get multiple contract signings with 4 people. They have to tag. We have to coexist for a week.
Does it tell you that they will be doing more show-long storylines and having, their main eventers continue to reappear throughout the course of 3 hours?
I think it means more pencils and erasers.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll see what that means.
There you go. those are all of your news items. Last thing is Winter Is Coming tonight from Garland, Texas. They've got a pretty strong advance for tonight's show, all built around Bryan Danielson and Hangman Page. What's your expectation for both the match and outcome?
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting one. I mean, Hangman is going to leave with the championship either way, but do you have Bryan Danielson take a loss, or do you do the draw again?
I really like the draw. I think I would want to come back with this one, whether it be Battle of the Belts or the debut on TBS. You've got a lot of shows to fill, but if you are going to have Danielson lose his first match, this is the match to do it. So it kind of is all dependent on what you have planned for Hangman Page afterward. There's obviously the outcome of the Punk MJF match should produce the next challenger, but that should be way down the road. So if you have to come back with Hangman defending this title on January 8th or the 5th, I like the idea of the time limit.
It's interesting to think about because time limits are done rarely, but at the same time, this is Hangman's first defense. Do you want his first defense to be unsuccessful? And is that a concern of theirs? Do we see a rematch for this match on one of the big shows? Does Bryan stay heel if he does lose? These are all really interesting questions.
Yeah, I don't think it harms Hangman in any way. You're coming back with the match. That would be the only reason to do the time limit is the automatic rematch, and then he gets the big win over Danielson. That's built up further. We've also got MJF and Dante Martin for the ring. Hikaru Shida and Serena Deeb, that their previous two matches have been excellent, so there's going to be high expectations for that one. And Wardlow taking on Matt Sydal. So as of this broadcast, we only have 4 matches announced thus far, and we will see what else happens if there are any appearances on the show. There's obviously going to be that speculation people are going to have because there's people that are available to come in, and you're going to have that curiosity from people whether there are debuts or not.
So Money Mark in the chat room is saying that 60-minute is the time limit for a title match. Is that the case, and how would they can they fit that in with 4 matches announced?
Yeah, you could, there's 4 matches. They can get those other 3 in the second hour, or you could start off with one. You could totally do it.
Yeah, I suppose with entrances.
It's just it'll be broken up by commercials, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it'll be interesting. Maybe they'll leave that.
Like Sydal and Wardlow does not have to be a long match. MJF and Dante should probably get like 8 to 10, and Shida and Deeb, I would say around the same 10 to 12. So
if that's the case,
it's pretty tight.
We can certainly expect Hangman versus Danielson to start if that's the case.
All right. Well, there you go. We will be back tonight with Rewind at Dynamite. We're live at 10:15 p.m. Eastern time for Double Ice Cap and Espresso members at postwrestlingcafe.com with a thorough review of Winter Is Coming with myself and Wai Ting. We will also be taking your feedback. And Wai, you're back tomorrow, not just with the daily news update at 1, but also the return of the wellness policy.
Yeah, correct. Jordan and I will be doing a sort of like a bit of a wrap for the year, but we'll be opening up to all the regular viewers who join us on Zoom at 3:00 to talk about kind of the past year and a half or so dealing with this pandemic and what they've learned, how they've grown from it. So just a bit of a recap on the past period that we've started the podcast and have really kind of had a lot more time to think about some of these topics. So if you're a patron, you will see a link at some point in your mailbox. So we invite you all to join us at 3:00 Thursdays on Zoom.
And Thursday, we'll wrap up with a new edition of MCU Later for patrons with W.H. Park and Karen Peterson chatting the second to last episode of Hawkeye. Is that correct? It ends next week?
Oh, okay. Sorry, my earplugs just cut out. So
does Hawkeye end next week? Is that the season finale?
Yes, it is. Yes. So yeah, it does. Yeah, the episode was great. We won't spoil it.
Okay. I can't spoil it. I have not seen it. That's it for us. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a like. Share this video. Tell the world what they're missing. And thank you to everybody for joining us live here for the Post Daily News Update.